Hello, and welcome to the final questions of the seventh Fetter. I hope it has been enjoyable and useful for you. So let's get started. The first question: what story of your past used to be relevant for your choices that you now see through? And obviously, this is pointing to all the something out of nothing you have created about your stories. We used to believe that the stories that we had in our life was defining who we were and defining the experiences that we had. And the story that came with I'm the oldest of the siblings, or I had an abusive childhood, or I grew up in a dysfunctional family with lots of neglect, or any of those things that you might have had a story about regarding your past. That was a part of that self-referential identification that we had. And as long as you maintain that, you cannot be free. You need to be in a space where that self-referential part, that pinning of the I, is no longer there. Which means that you have no idea what your past was like. You have no idea of what you thought you experienced actually was what you experienced. You know that it was just what you thought you experienced. And that is unpinning everything. That is putting you in a situation where whatever you think happened, you know didn't. Whatever you think you were and they were, you weren't and they weren't. It's not at all what you thought. What you thought is only a story. It's only what you thought. So the question is pointing to that. What story of your past used to be relevant for your choices that you now see through? And it's tying in with the second fetter of if you have a story about you being shameful or guilty or full of fear or angry and needing to protect yourself, that is part of that story. What used to be that story? What used to be real for you that you now know it's not real? And it's the second fetter is something that you're going to keep working with over and over and over, because there's keep coming new twist on the kaleidoscope, and you'll keep going to see other things about your past and about you and about the way you view life. And the more you unpin in every situation, the more you also see things clearly, which means that the underlying stories that we have, they need to change. Otherwise, you can't be free, obviously. The moment you hold yourself into a story, the world is an unsafe place to be, that is a story. That is an underlying belief. And that is what you make all your choices out for. There is an I that needs to be careful in this world that is unsafe. And that needs to be protected. That is identification. That is a solid identification, and you cannot be free as long as you still believe all that. As long as you still, and I also want to say that as long as you have the need to believe all that, there's still work to do. There's still stuff you need to look at. There's still stuff that needs to be experienced and expressed, and you do that with the second fetter. So what choices did you use to take? Did you use to make? That was based on an underlying belief that you now no longer believe in. That story is no longer alive or real in any way. That story has been completely unhooked and is not part of anything that can shape or color or create any decision now in any way, because it's no longer relevant. Whatever the trauma was, it has been experienced and expressed. Second question: how did you use to emphasize perception in comparison with how it actually is? And that is obviously pointing to that delusion we have about perception, about that whatever I see, hear, feel, smell, taste, touch, that is real. That is real because I am perceiving it. First of all, there's a center, there's a self-referential I am experiencing this, I am perceiving that needs to be unpinned. Second of all, whatever you see, hear, smell, taste, touch, or feel is only a reflection of your sensory experiences, of what you can see, hear, smell, taste, touch, right? So that experience is very, very limited. You can only have an idea of what it is that you are experiencing. You cannot base a whole truth on that. But I saw what she said. I heard what she meant. I know all that. No, you don't. No, you don't. That perception has an underlying belief that is not true. That perception is built out, that is a post-it that is built on an underlying belief that is not true. Which means that whatever you perceive is only what you perceive. It's only what you think you perceive. It's not really what you perceive. So letting go of all of those preconceived notions about you knowing anything is what needs to happen. That you are really humble to any experience that you have, to any perception that you have, to any idea you have about what is real and what isn't real, what is truth and what isn't truth. You need to really, really be humble to that, because whatever you think you experience is just that. It's just what you think you experience, which means that perception on its own is completely different. It's not what you think it is. Another thing I just want to say about this second question is also that how did you use to emphasize perception? It's also noticing that delusion that we have in that I know what I am perceiving. So how did you use to emphasize what you think you see, hear, smell, taste, touch to be reality? Also look into that. Third question. What something out of nothing did you use to create? Now, this is a biggie. I know. That looking at all the areas in your life that you created something out of nothing, all of that needs to be seen through. It needs to be seen through for what it actually is. That is just a perception. It's just an underlying belief that makes you believe that things are in a certain way. So it's basically looking at everything in your life. Everything that you use to create something out of nothing about. The way you are, the world is, your neighbor is, your role in the family is, you being healthy or not healthy, you being vegan, not vegan, you being woman, man, anything in between, you being all of that. That is something out of nothing. That is you making small labels that you're putting on everything. Reality is not like that. In reality, there's nothing self-referential where any of that can happen. In reality, there is no I looking out and perceiving things and being in a certain way. There is just unfolding. And there cannot be any ownership in that. Which means that without any ownership, there is no I. There is nothing that is solid. There's nothing that maintains whatever you perceive it to be. So all the areas in your life that you create something out of nothing needs to be looked at. It needs to be acknowledged, accepted, and understood, so you can completely unhook and unpin that self-referential part that believes that whatever you think you are seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching is what you are seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. That is something out of nothing. Even that has to go. Now the next one is a question that is poking to the second fetter. And the question is, how did you realize that you can never be abused or taken advantage of? And obviously that is a big one, especially if you have had an abusive childhood, or you have experienced any kind of abuse in any way, that you have been taken advantage of, that you have been treated poorly, disrespectful. Then obviously there are a lot in you that needs to be seen and needs to be heard, and that you need to create space for. Obviously, go to the second fetter and work with it. When we are in the seventh fetter, we have dealt with that, which means that when I ask the question, how did you realize you can never be abused or taken advantage of, you are in a position where you see that, of course I can't. First of all, there's no I. Second of all, for that to happen, there needs to be someone here that is in a certain way. And there needs to be someone out there that are in a certain way towards this here. None of that is real. Whatever anybody says to you is not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of them and their bubble of reality and what they need to work with in their awakening process with their therapist. So whatever people say towards you is a reflection of that. I'm in the United States, and at the moment we have a lot of political unrest because of MAGAs and the leftists or the Democrats. And there's so much spewing at both sides towards the other. It's bizarre to observe when you know that everything they say is a reflection of themselves. They're standing and talking about their own bubble of reality. That whatever they talk about is what they are afraid of in them. For anybody that is certain that they are right is coming from a very, very fragile space that is very vulnerable. If you have a belief of anything being right in a certain way and you will die on that hill, that just shows that you're super, super fragile. You need to be able to see everything from a higher point of view. You need to pull yourself up on the 5th floor and recognize yourself in the opponent, recognize yourself in the other person, empathize with what the other person say. You don't have to agree. You don't have to be a therapist towards them. You don't even have to sympathize. But you can empathize for that scared person that believes that the world needs to be a bad place and I need to be right, otherwise everything will crumble for me. I need to be right so I don't feel the fear, anger, guilt and shame in me because that is too much. I cannot deal with it, and that is why you need to be wrong. That is what they're standing and saying. That is what they're fighting for. They're fighting for not feeling that they are vulnerable inside and that they're not a hero, that they're not, they don't have all the truth. They don't know anything. But that is a very, very vulnerable place to be. So obviously it's much nicer to point fingers at the others and say they are wrong and I'm right. Oh, I don't feel the fear, anger, guilt and shame in me right now. But whenever you believe that you are in the right, you are the most fragile. You're the most deluded. Because you can't be. You can't be. And whenever you believe that there's something to fight for, the only one you're fighting is you. So how did you realize that you can never be abused or taken advantage of? It's very much in line with this. Nobody can ever do anything towards you. They are doing things towards them to avoid feeling what they're feeling, which you can have empathy towards. It was never about you. If you look back at your childhood and if you came from a dysfunctional family, if you hadn't been there, somebody else had been. It was never about you, ever. And I'm not putting any green lights. I'm not gaslighting. I'm not saying that we can just treat other people like utter trash. It's not what I'm saying. If that is what you're hearing, go to the 2nd fetter and work what needs to be worked with. This is the 7th fetter. You need to be in a position where all that no longer has any validity or power to it anymore. If it does, go to the 2nd fetter and work with it. In the 7th fetter, you are very much aware of that you can never be taken advantage of and you can never be abused. That is not possible. That is also one of those, I just want to say that it's a really good idea to take to Discord. We have a Hive Mind community on Discord where you can join and you can talk about these things. There's other people that are in the same process, doing their curriculum, working on their own awakening path that you can talk to about this and that you can help whenever they need support. The next question. Without curiosity, your mind constantly creates concepts. How do you handle that now in your everyday life? And that is pointing to the part that we've talked about a lot, that if you're not curious, you will believe the first thing that pops into mind. You need to be curious to why that popped into mind, why you believe that to be true, why you believe that to be fact. You need to be curious to everything. You need to question everything. And whatever you believe is real or truth, or this is how the universe is, or this is how I am, or this is how any of that is, whatever you believe, it can only be a belief. It can only be a belief. In your direct experience, there is an unfolding happening which cannot be described in any way. And that can only be experienced with curiosity. And with the curiosity, even when you experience it with the curiosity, it cannot be expressed or explained or anything at all. It cannot be put into words or made a video about or made a little drawing or painting, because no matter what you do, you will minimize the experience. That unfolding is beyond words. And that can only be experienced with curiosity to what you assume is the unfolding and what really is the unfolding. If you do not do that, your mind is creating concepts, which means that you might not have had an awakening experience at all. You have had concepts experiences or belief experiences, but you haven't had an awakening experience. It's just a concept that you keep moving about like a Rubik cube and saying that this is the awakening that I'm experiencing. But the moment you have words to it, it's not. If you believe that that you have had an experience, you probably haven't, because that experience, this is so difficult. Whatever experience you can put words into, with the words put onto it, is not the experience. No longer. It's no longer the experience. So whatever concept you have needs to be unpinned, unhooked. Whatever belief you have needs to be unhooked. The concepts and the beliefs can be taken to the second fetter, and you will have lots and lots of insights about your conditions, your causes and conditions in your life, why you have become the person that you have, why this biology is reacting as it is. There's so much insight in the second fetter about that. But the access point to it is via curiosity. Next question. How did you used to believe that your personal story or past mattered? And this one is a very important one when we talk about time and we talk about the past. When we still believe in time and we still believe in our story, it's very important that our story is heard and seen and believed in and told over and over and over, because we need validation. We need to feel that we are being heard and seen, and that the trauma that we had, that it did happen, it did affect me. It's not just something that I'm making up. It's real. It did happen. And what I would like to emphasize is that of course it is. Of course it is. You can feel it. In your body, you have that feeling. That is why we work with the second fetter as much as we do. That all that needs to be experienced, and it needs to be felt, and it needs to be validated, and it needs to be created space for as much as it needs. And when that has happened, it doesn't need that much space anymore. Because it has been met. You know, if you're thirsty, the moment you have had a glass of water, you're not thirsty anymore. You don't need to carry around a glass of water. You don't need to talk about that time when you were super thirsty and you didn't have a glass of water, because you have had it. You know, the importance and the urgency is not there anymore because it has been met. And traumas and beliefs and concepts that we only create because it has not been met. There's something that needs to be met, and you do that in the second fetter. So the question is, how did you used to believe that your personal story or past matters? We're pointing to this question just for you to make absolutely sure that there is no identification left in any of it. You can say that you were the firstborn, or you can say you were the youngest. You can say that you had a wonderful family with lots of support. You can say anything. You can say you were an orphan. You can say anything. And you know that all that is just a story. All of it is just a story. None of it is important. None of it matters anymore, because you have clenched that thirst that you had. You have felt what needed to be felt, and you have created space for what needed to be created space for. You have experienced it, and you no longer have the need for that validation because it has been met. You're not thirsty anymore. So the stories are no longer important. It's no longer important to talk about your education, your childhood trauma, any of that. It's no longer important, because it has already been met. And if it hasn't, go back to the second fetter and meet it. How did you recognize that your underlying beliefs were inherited and not yours? And that is a part of the work that we do in the second fetter, where we really, really see that there's nothing original about anything that you have deemed to be you, or that you have perceived to be your personality. That there's nothing unique about that at all. It is a copy-paste of a copy-paste of a copy-paste. And noticing that you are nothing but a copy-paste of your parents, of who they were. If they neglected you, then you have neglected you, or you have neglected your children. It's just how it is. We are copy-paste of a copy-paste. It's part of the causes and conditions. It is that we are not anything unique. It's not possible. The mirror neurons in our brain make sure that that is not possible, because it's the way that we ensure survival. So noticing that you are like your mom if you're a woman, and you're like your dad if you're a man, is important. It's really important. Whoever was the most influential, that can also be the toxic one, the most influential in your childhood is the one you have become. Because whatever they did is what you have tried to escape your entire life. That has become your starting point. And that has shaped you into the person that you were before you started on this journey. And that part of really seeing that there's nothing unique. It's just a copy-paste. Everything is just inherited. That is really helpful in setting you free, in unpinning or anything, everything, just unpinning all of it. It was just a perception. It was just a thought. It wasn't real. And the unique me that I thought was here was just a patchwork blanket of survival mechanisms to deal with that. Yeah. Next question is, how has your relationship with nature changed? And that is because that is a very good indication of the change that you have experienced in you, in just seeing how you are reflecting you in nature. When you are sitting and looking at a tree or a leaf or a fly or a fruit fly in your kitchen or whatever, how you see that is a reflection of how you see you. And it is easier to becoming aware of these things than looking at Janice. Janice is very like a chisel, hammer and chisel, noticing the bubble of reality of who you think you are by looking at Janice. It's very much the hammer and the chisel. Looking at nature, it's much more subtle. It's much finer. It's much, killing a fruit fly because it's annoying you. So, okay, so I'm putting myself in the center. Wow, okay. So who is the fruit fly and annoying? Who is that is pointing to? That's self-referential thingy that can be annoyed by a little fruit fly? So really looking into how your relationship with nature has changed. Do you still believe that nature is there around you, making your life comfortable or uncomfortable? Or do you see that that is not even a thing? It's just one field. Everything is just one field. And this density of the field is just a part of all that. Then there's a very hard question from us to you. Are you creating stillness, simplicity, and contentment whenever you start to believe a concept or a thought or a feeling or emotion? And it's just like imagining that you have Todd and I with you, and we're just, calm down, calm down. Whatever you feel right now, whatever concept you just created, whatever belief you think that you have, breathe, close your eyes. Are you creating stillness, simplicity, and contentment? Are you feeling into that unpinned unfolding that is happening all the time? Can you be in a body where you feel the underlying belief, the concept, the feeling, the emotion, the thought, where that is allowed to be there? And there's no trying to get it out of the way or escape it in any way. You're just with all that, with the stillness, simplicity, and contentment. And then you see that the unfolding is part of everything. It's part of that too. There's nothing that is more important, like a thought or feeling or emotion, than anything else. It's just part of the same unfolding. There's no I experiencing any of it. It's just unfolding. So this question is more like a gentle reminder for you to close your eyes and breathe and become present in this moment, in this unfolding that is happening. The next question can for some people be like a bit of, how did it feel when you realized that awakening is a concept and can therefore not be achieved? And we ask this question because it's really important to know that awakening is not something that can be achieved. When we talk about awakening, we talk about a concept, right? And you can create lots of other concepts and beliefs around that. And then it's something achievable. It's something about something that you can do something about. But that's not awakening. Awakening is that unpinning of the self. There's nothing self-referential. There's an unpinning. And there's just an unfolding happening. Becoming aware of that unfolding without me noticing the unfolding, but just noticing that everything is a part of that unfolding. I can't even say I am a part of that unfolding because there's no I. There's not even a sitting here noticing the unfolding around me. Not even that. Not even that. That's a 6 Fetter issue. Which means that it cannot be achieved. It is already here. Awakening is already here. You are already awake. It is already unfolding. It is already happening. Whether you are aware of it or not, it's still happening. It's just like the rotation of the earth. You're not noticing that it's happening. It doesn't matter. It's still rotating. This doesn't change anything. Just that you become aware that the earth is rotating, it doesn't mean that it all of a sudden starts to rotate. It has done that already. You just suddenly realize something that has happened all along. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Nothing is different. Everything is the same. Everything is the same. And it's the same with awakening. It's not something you can achieve because it's already here. It's not something you can lose because it's already here. It's been here all along. It's just the ego I, the self-referential point that believe that I can achieve something outside of me. And that is when we start all the seeking and the finding and all of that. But that is not the awakening. It's like looking in a place to find awareness. It's so funny when I see like courses and seminars and workshops about being present in the moment. You can't be anywhere else. You can't be anywhere else. You're already here. It's already here. There's nothing to achieve. There's nothing to accomplish. There's nothing any different than what is right now. Unpin and just notice that unfolding that is happening without an I, a self-referential I in the middle. The next question is supposed to calm you. What does silence mean to you now? And it's just pointing to that silence that is there all along, when there's no mind chatter, when there's nothing to achieve, there's nothing to do, there's nothing that needs to be any different. What is in this moment right now is all there is, and there's just silence. There's no contraction, there's nothing to set free, no one to set free, there's nothing besides this. That is just silence. So what does silence mean to you now? And the last question is again meant with lots and lots of love from the both of us to you. Have you healed your past? Have you really looked into all the things that need your attention? Have you created space for everything that needs to be felt? Can you look at your past and say that none of it is important? It's not important for me to talk about that I was abused as a child. It's not important to talk about that I came from a neglectful family, dysfunctional family. It's not important. It's just a story. If it is important, it's because there's still things that needs to be healed. The moment you have healed it, it bears no importance anymore. Because the story is not real. The story is there to point. It's a metaphor for something that points you in a direction of what needs your healing and your compassion and your love and your kindness. So have you healed your past? Are you ready to move on with the 8th fetter? It's important to have looked at all of it. And also, of course you can move on to the 8th fetter if there's still stuff that you need to heal. But you know in the back of your mind that there's still hooks into stories that are more important than being present right now. And just bear that in mind if you move on to the 8th fetter or any of the higher fetters. Just bear that in mind, that you have still a story that still needs to be felt and heard and experienced and expressed. That still is important to you. So whatever you hear is heard with those ears on. You have tears in your ears. You can't really hear what is said. But if you can put yourself in a position and unpin that self-referential I and just be present with what is right now, then you're well on your way. And yeah, I think that was it. Thank you.